Alright guys, so here's the review of the Watchdives WD16500. So, is this the best Daytona Homage option you can go for in terms of specs to price ratio? Hopefully by the end of this review, we'll have an answer to that. So I'll quickly show the packaging in passing. So we've got the Watchdives logo embossed on there, and then it's like a carbon fibre style case. Then we've got the Watchdives logo on the zip as well. Nice handy case, always better than a useless box. And here's the actual watch. So there's a few different dial variations with this one. So you've got the black one that I've got here. You can also get it in white. They do a light blue and they do a gold and black one, which also has a two-tone bracelet as well. And they've got an offer on at the moment where you can actually get a free cut to size rubber strap included in that. So check out the link in the description if you want to see all the different bits and pieces I'm talking about here. I do like this black dial one. I think it looks pretty smart. I think I had the white dial with the Pagani one. But before we get into any more details, first of all let's go over the dimensions. So we've got a diameter of 39.3, thickness of 12.1, lug width of 20, then the all-important lug to lug is coming at a 47.7, but we have actually got male end links on this. So the end link to end link measurement is actually more like 50.8, but you can see they do drop down pretty much in line with the case. So it doesn't really wear as large as you'd think when it's on wrist, as I'll show you later on. When it comes to the weight on the supply bracelet, it's coming in at 141 grams with all links included, and then size for my 7-inch wrist, it's coming at about 131. So now let's take a closer look at that bracelet and talk about it in a bit more detail. Starting with the clasp. So you can see we've got that high polish midsection, which does smudge up a bit and gather fingerprints, because it is pretty high in the UK at the moment. Especially because I've got to record this with all the windows shut, because otherwise it's just too noisy, and we don't have aircon here either, and our houses are built to retain the heat because we just don't really get these kind of temperatures normally. So we don't have any micro adjust on the side there. So yep, you are right in what you're thinking. We have actually got on the fly adjustable clasp on this one. So you've got the milled section there, and then there's that really nice on the fly adjustable clasp, which is coming really handy with the current weather, because I've been adjusting this quite a bit throughout the day. Works really well, no issues at all. Decent amount of adjustment there too. And you can also see there as well, we have actually got push pins on the bracelet. And again, we've got that high polish, so it does gather fingerprints a bit on the edges. I think I would have personally preferred this if it had just been fully brushed, the bracelet. But let me know, what would you prefer? Either way though, it is really nicely finished. The polishing and the brushing is all really nicely done. Now moving on to the head of the watch. Again, we've got high polish on the side, so we've got that signed crown there with the Watchdives logo. And then we've got the two pushes either side, which are unsigned, but you can see they are actually screw down as well, and it is a screw down crown too. And you can see more clearly now as well, that male end link. Would have preferred female, but as I say, it drops down pretty much straight away, so it doesn't really affect it too much. Then we've got that perfectly flat crystal there, and then that sloped ceramic bezel integrates nicely. But now, let's move on to the dial and talk about that in a bit more detail. So, we've got applied indices, but then when it comes to the logo, that's just printed, as is the text just below it. I do like that they kept the text pretty minimal. And then we've got the usual kind of sub-dials you'd expect for this kind of movement, which is a VK63. So unfortunately we have that 24-hour sub-dial at the 3 o'clock. Not my favourite, not really all that useful, but it is what it is with this movement. But there is some nice detailing on those sub-dials, so they do look good. We've got a good length on most of the hands. The hour hand perhaps could be a touch longer maybe, but they are nicely detailed again, faceted, and then they are loomed, although not fully. So we'll see in a bit whether that affects the longevity of the lume on this. Normally this style of watch doesn't really have the best lume when it comes to the homages at least, because there just isn't that much surface area for lume, but again, we'll see in a bit. So when it comes to the bezel, printing on that is nicely done, nice and clear, and it is ceramic as I said before. So overall, in terms of the dial and the bezel, I think they've done a pretty good job. I think it looks really good, and obviously depending on what dial colour you go for, the legibility will vary slightly. So, as I said earlier, when it comes to the movement on this, the listing at least says it's the VK63. I think the Pagani version was the VK64 if I remember correctly, but as far as I can tell they're more or less the same movement anyway. But you've probably noticed there is something missing on this dial with that movement, so that does actually have a date complication, but if we unscrew this you'll see we have actually got a ghost date position on this one. So we'll have to pull out the crown again. And then that second hand down on the sub dial at 6 has stopped, so we go hacking, and then we can just change the time, and then pop it back in, that will re-engage again. So, works well. when it comes to screwing it down, despite having the crown guards, still pretty easy, although I am a little bit sway-handed here, so I do slip slightly. So I'll quickly show you the chronograph function as well now. So if we unscrew those screw down pushers, again, nice and easy to do because they're nice and grippy. So if we push it down, then we can start the chronograph. So we get that almost mechanical style smooth sweeping. And then if you push it again, it will stop if you push it down fully, which I didn't do the first time. And then the bottom one will reset it. And then don't forget, once you've done that, screw them back down. Otherwise that water resistance isn't going to be working properly, which is 100 meters. So now you probably want to know whether that crystal on there is actually sapphire or not. So let's test that out now and find out using the trusty Diamond Selector 2. And yep, we have got sapphire crystal, so always good to see. So now it's time to check out the Lume, see if it's any good. I have to admit, I wasn't expecting much from this, because these kind of watches don't normally have great Lume in my experience. So you can see we've got a little bit there already, but let's charge it up, give it a proper chance. And there we go. So it's looking pretty impressive, at least initially. I wasn't expecting to see a fully loomed bezel on this kind of style of watch. I think that's the first I've seen on this channel. Correct me if I'm wrong though. So we've got BGW9, and at least initially it's looking consistent across the hands, indices and bezel. A lot brighter than I was expecting. They've definitely got a good amount on there. No patchiness either. Perhaps they could have put some on those hands on the subdials, but they're that small. I don't think it would have been really worth it. It wouldn't have lasted that long, I don't think. So I think they made the right call there. But the question as always is, what is the longevity like? So let's speed this up now and find out. So to begin with, not a great deal of change, as you'd expect, but the longer this goes on, you will see it does start to fade a bit, but it stays fairly consistent still across the hands and the indices though, and also that bezel, surprisingly enough. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with this one, if you do pick one up. So hopefully by now, you can see why I was saying at the start of this video this could possibly be the best in terms of specs to price ratio. Because we've got some really good stuff going on with this. But you probably want to know now how much it's going to cost you. So currently it's $99, which is about £77, and that's about €92. So I'll show you what it's like on wrist now, and then we'll go over the pros and cons, and I'll let you know whether I think that's worth it or not. And here it is on my 7-inch wrist. So I think it wears really nicely, and a lot of that is down to that on-the-fly adjustable clasp, so you can get the perfect fit. That is what takes this above the Pagani, or at least one of the things that does, in my opinion. And again, don't forget at the moment you can also get that free cut-to-size rubber strap with this as well, so you'll have 2 different strap options out of the box. I'd still personally prefer if the bracelet was fully brushed instead of having that polished centre section, but again, it's the same on the Pagani, so can't really hold that against it. And now it's on wrist, you can see what I was on about with that male end link. Doesn't really affect it, it wears more or less like a female one, because it drops down so quickly. Another thing that really sets this apart from the Pagani though, is that lume. It's really impressive. And the Paganis, as you know, just don't have very good lume generally, and on this kind of style of watch, it's even worse. This is actually really good, usable lume. So for me personally, between that and the on-the-fly adjustable clasp, and I'd argue the slightly better overall finishing, justifies the difference in price, because the price difference isn't really all that much. You can get the Paganis for about £50, I think, whereas this is coming in at 77. So it's not that big a difference. But the question is, do you agree with me? If you do, and you're interested in picking one up, don't forget to use the link down in the description. And also, if you want to check out the review I did of the Pagani design version, which I did pretty early on in the channel, I think, I'll leave a link to that at the end. But that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.